coming to the conclusion. We're in the last set of laws, the laws of Malachim, kings, Melcham Sehem, and the battles, which will include, of course, laws of Mashiach, as we will see. Let's go right into it. This text includes 23 mitzvahs, 10 positive and 13 negative. They are the obligation to appoint a king in Israel, prohibition against appointing a convert as a king, prohibition against a king marrying many wives, prohibition against a king accumulating many horses, prohibition against a king amassing too much silver and gold, the obligation to destroy 7 nations living in the land of Canaan, the prohibition against allowing anyone of them to remain alive, the obligation to destroy the descendants of Amalek, the obligation to remember what Amalek did, the prohibition against forgetting Amalek's evil deeds, including his ambush against the Israelites during the journey from Egypt to Israel, prohibition against dwelling in Egypt, obligation to offer peace to the inhabitants of a city when besieging it, to carry out the laws governing the siege as prescribed in Torah, in particular the laws applying to the enemy agrees to surrender and those applying if they refuse it, prohibition against offering peace to Ammon and Moab, in contrast to the other nations when besieging them. The prohibition against destroying fruit-bearing trees during a siege. The obligation to set a latern outside an army camp. A latrine. The obligation to carry a spike to dig with. The obligation to anoint a kohen to speak to the troops in the event of war. The obligation to allow those who have consecrated wives, build houses, or planted vineyards to rejoice with their new status for a complete year while releasing them from military conscription. The prohibition against asking those mentioned in the previous category to perform any duties, including handling the needs of one's city or providing supplies to the troops during that first year of marriage or the home. The obligation not to become frightened nor to flee in the midst of battle. The prohibitions and obligations regarding Yifat Torah, a non-Jewish woman to whom the Torah allows relations in wartime. Prohibition against selling Yifat Torah. You can't sell her. Prohibition against subjugating her to perform duties after having relations with her. Can't make her into your slave. Okay, these mitzvahs are in the coming chapters. So, halacha number 1. Israel was commanded to fulfill 3 mitzvahs upon entering the promised land. To choose a king, appoint a king over yourselves, to wipe out the descendants of Amalek, erase the memory of Amalek, and to build God's chosen house, to seek out his presence and go there. So the appointment of the king should precede the war against Amalek. This is evident from Shmuel's charge to King Saul, the prophet Samuel. God sent me to anoint you as king. Now go and smite Amalek. Amalek's siege should be annihilated before the construction of the temple. And it came to pass when the king dwelled in his palace, and God gave him peace from all his enemies who surrounded him. The king said to Nathan the prophet, "Look, I am dwelling in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells within curtains." So you have to destroy Amalek, then build the holy temple. Since a mitzvah to appoint a king, why was God displeased with the people's request of a king from Samuel? Because they made a request in the spirit of complaint, rather than seeking to fulfill the mitzvah of appointing a king. They were simply intent on rejecting the prophet Samuel as applied from God's reply to him. It is not you, but me they have rejected. How do they reject him? Through the prophet, you reject him. Excuse me. As an additional preferred option, A king may be appointed only by a court of 70 elders, together with the prophet, as Joshua was appointed by Moshe and his court, and as Saul and David were appointed by Samuel, the prophet of Ramah, and his court. A king should not be appointed from converts to Judaism. This applies even if the convert's ancestors have been Jewish for many generations, unless his mother or father are a native-born Israelite. As it states, you may not appoint a foreigner who is not one of your brethren for the king. This does not apply to monarchy alone, but also position authority in Israel. The convert should serve as an army commander, a leader of 50, as a leader of 10. He may not supervise the allocation of water in the stream in various fields. Needless to say, the judge or a Nasi should be only a native Israelite. As it stated, appoint a king over you from among your brethren. This implies appointees from who are from your brethren. You may not appoint a woman as a king. When describing the monarchies, or employs a male form, the word for king and not female. Melech, not Malka. Principle also applies to other positions of authority within Israel. Only men should be appointed to fill them. Not so PC today, but so is the halacha. Neither a butcher, barber, or bath attendant, or a tanner should be appointed king or high priest. This is not because of their inherent fault, but because of their professions are less prestigious, and these people always treat them lightly, and people will treat them lightly. A person who has served in one of these professions, even one day, is qualified for monarchy. When a king is appointed, he is anointed with oil reserved for his um, anointed with oil reserved for this purpose, as it says, and Shmuel took a cruse of oil and poured it over his head. Then he kissed him. Once a king is anointed, he and his descendants are granted monarchy until eternity, for the monarchy is passed down by inheritance. Thus, he, the king, as it says in the verse, and descendants will prolong their reign in the midst of Israel. If the king leaves only a young son, the monarchy should be held for him until he matures, as Yehoiada did for Yoash. The order of inheritance in monarchy is the same as the governing and inheritance of property. An older son is given precedence over a younger one. Not only the monarchy, but other positions of authority and appointments in Israel are transferred to one's children and grandchildren as an inheritance forever. The above applies if the knowledge and the fear of God of the son is equivalent to that of his ancestors. If the fear of God is equivalent to their heirs, but not their knowledge, he should be granted his father's position and given instruction. However, under no circumstance should a person who lacks fear of God be appointed to any position in Israel, even though he possesses much knowledge. Right? So you need to have the fear of God, right? Yireh Hashem, exactly. Once David was appointed king, he acquired the crown of kingship. After the kingship belonged to him and to his male descendants forever. As it says, your throne shall be established forever. Nevertheless, his acquisition of monarchy was conditional, applying only to the righteous among his descendants. As the verse says in Tehillim, if your children will keep my covenant, your children shall also sit down on your throne forever. Despite this condition, God assured David that the monarchy would never be taken from his descendants forever. As the verse states, if his children will forsake my Torah and cease walking in my statutes, I will punish their transgressions with a rod, and their sins will plague. Nevertheless, I will not utterly remove my grace from him. His throne shall be established forever. So once it's in the house of David, it's there. If a prophet appoints a king from another tribe of Israel, and that king follows the path of Torah and mitzvahs and fights the wars of God, he is considered as a king, and all the commands associated with the monarchy apply to him. Although the kingship was primarily given to David, and one of his descendants will be serving as a king, there is a legitimacy to the rule of other kings. Behold, Achia of Shiloh appointed Rambam and told him, it shall be that if you obey all that I command you, I will build you a faithful house as I built David. Similarly, Achia told him to his David's son, I will grant one tribe, so that David, my servant, will always have sovereignty over me in Jerusalem. So I'm not exactly clear how that's supposed to work. Let's see over here further. The kings of the Davidic dynasty will prevail forever. Your throne shall be established forever. In contrast, should a king arise from other Israelites, the monarchy will eventually cease from their descendants. For behold, Jeroboam was told, I will afflict the house of David, but not forever. Halacha 10, the kings of Israel are not anointed with special anointing only, but for or only descendants of David will be appointed as king of Jerusalem, and only descendants of David are anointed with special anointing oil. The kings of David dynasty should only be anointed near a spring. Halacha 12. Last halacha in the chapter. A son who succeeds his father as king is not anointed unless he assumes his position amid a dispute over the inheritance or during a civil war. Under these circumstances, he should be anointed in order to remove all disagreement. Therefore, they anointed Solomon because of the claim of Adani, and Yahu, and Yoash because of the usurpation of Atalia, and Yochaz because of the claim of his brother, Yohakim. Okay, just one halacha here. In chapter 2, the king must be treated with great honor. He must implant awe and fear of him in the hearts of all men. And command, appoint a king implies the obligation to be in awe of him. We may not ride on his horse, nor sit on his throne, use his scepter, wear his crown, or use any of his utensils. When he dies, they should all be burned before his bier. Similarly, only another king is allowed to make use of his servants, maids, and attendants. Accordingly, Avishag was permitted to Solomon, but prohibited in Yahweh. Okay.